Hello, hello. So, Facebook and YouTube have a new feature here where you have to go live on their end also. So I'm here. You guys missed the intro. It's all good. Today I'm going to go over the generative content. I took a poll recently and I wanted to see what the interest would be for this next episode. Looks like the majority voted on generative content. So I'm going to go over how I utilize just from effects and a solid gradient or an image and use audio reaction or an audio analysis to trigger the effects. Let me know if you guys can see the stream. Let me see here. Let me just check. It says live on my end now, so I think you guys are all here. Let me see if you guys can have the chat up here. All right, it's live now. All right, good. Thanks. Just a minor issue on my side here. So what I'm going to go over today is a little bit of the interface, how I use this a layout inside of Arena. You can do this in Avenue also, Resolume Avenue. Arena has the capability of using advanced outputs for LED screens, projection mapping. A lot of this content that I'm going to show you today is the majority of it is used on an LED screen for concerts or events, some artists, and it's a great look. It's audio reactive, so it's synced with BPM sync, and I use the audio capture to trigger most of these effects. All right, good, crystal clear. Sounds good. I like that. All right, so this is a React Set 1 that I released recently. If you guys, I'll put it in the description. You can go to my website. I'll load it up here. And under footage, just go to cvhvisuals.com, footage, and you can download React Set 1 here. It's a free download. Check it out. There's a YouTube video that goes over a little bit of a tutorial with it, and it will walk you through how to get started with. You can basically dissect some of these effects and see how this is created, and we'll go over a couple of them today. I released a second React set also. It's a purchase only set. I'm working on a 3. They're just a little bit more involved. So check those out. Download React Set 1 if you want to follow with me today. You can follow with me. I'm going to start from a blank deck here, and we're going to get started here. So let me just create a new deck. We're going to keep this tidy. We're going to name this. Let's do generative content. Okay. Content. All right. So the way I usually start, this is, sometimes you have a vision and you can follow it and you can end up with what you were going for. Sometimes something just comes together and it looks cool and you just add on top of it. It's it's not always a hole-in-one shot. So like the React Set 1 took me some time to put together. 2 took me, it took me about a couple months. I didn't work on it every day. I go to work also. I have a video production company. But on my off time, I created it, and it took me a couple months. So what I like to do is come up with a theme. So you can see one has, this is kind of a mix of effects. React Set 2, I put together them as a column-based look. So you can overlay each of these effects and combine them for, like the chorus of the song, or if there's a solo or something, then you can trigger another effect on top of it, and it just adds to that effect. You can pull off the same thing with just linking some of these effects to a dashboard control. and then you can, crank up the effect that way also for, different drops of the song. So that's what I did with the React Set 2. React Set 1 was just give you guys an overall idea of how to make an effect, which is what we're going to do right now. So what I usually start with is either a solid or a gradient. We're going to grab a gradient, and I am going to change the colors around here a little bit to a preference that I like. So we'll just darken these up, and I try to keep them all themed, color themed, and at the end I'll throw like a hue rotate on it. That way I can adjust the color, and when I adjust the color, it switches the color for all of the effects in sync. You can update the thumbnail. When you're done with your effect, you can either go to thumbnail, update. There's also Control-Shift-T. So if you select a Control-Shift-T, it'll update your thumbnail here. And that just gives you, the visual. You can name them also. This is going to be called EQ. So this will change the name as EQ. In React Set 1, what I used a majority of the time was a reveal effect. It's a killer effect. I didn't even know about it. I was playing around with some effects and I saw it and it blew my mind away. So if I'll pull it up here, I'll pull it up in front of me. This is the React set, what I started with, and there is, let me get rid of some of these here. Let me just move around. You can rearrange your panels here also. If you just grab your panel, you'll see the two dots, and you can drag it into a panel to combine panels together. That way it gives you a little bit more room to work with. So I'm going to do that so you guys can see it a little bit better. I am going to drag this up a little bit so we can just see the full, or most of it, of the effects that I'm working with here. I'm going to hide the gradient colors for now, and the transform is usually the transform I'll keep on the bottom. This is good. There's a render effect order here, so you can rearrange these effects here. If I close them, you can see you can drag them around, and transform as the last render depends on if you need to use it for an effect. There's always an additional transform you can add. This is the transform property that is applied when you first put a clip or an effect into your clip window here. And having it at the very end here means you can scale the whole effect that you're working with. And I like to keep it down at the bottom. I'll show you why as we start building this. This reveal effect comes with a phase. I'll go over some of these parameters here. The phase has, the amount or the completion of the reveal effect. There's an X and Y parameter. So if we go to Y, we'll turn them all so there's just one on the Y axis. And you can see if you move these down, you can click on these. I hold down and I can drag. It'll add different sections or segments here. And this is what an EQ will. This is what we're going for in EQ here. So we'll have 1, 2. You can usually 31, 32 is pretty good for me. We'll do 31 for now. And you'll see how when you bring them in and out now, how they're just combining. Some of you may know about this effect already, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I'm just trying to cover this as we go. There's a border which controls the border between each segment. We'll put that back to 3. Texture is full, or you can do color. We'll go over that in a minute. Fades them in and out, just like it sounds. You can see as they go out, they fade. If you turn it off, they just stay solid and they scale out. The scaling for an EQ, you want them to go up. So you'll see how they go up now. And this is with the phase. We're going to keep the phase down just a little bit now, just so we can see there's a order, which is random, is why they're all going up separately here. So we're going to go to normal, which will bring them all up at the same time. And then there's a seed, which you can do audios, which is what we're going for. And you can choose the composition audio or external audio, which is what I have right now as a capture card. And you can see that it's grabbing the audio capture right now off of my microphone. So there's one more addition I want to show you on the interface here, this FFT gain. This shows your audio analysis that is coming in. If it's not in the window here, just go up to View, and you can click on Show FFT Gain right here. Let me cover the preferences for audio really quick too before we move any further forward. Under the Audio Preference panel, you have your audio output device, your audio input device, and then your external audio FFT input, which is right here. This is what will your channels on your input device, what you can grab with. Keep in mind that the buffer size will be your reaction time to some of these effects. So if you have a card that will only offer you a high buffer size, it won't be as synced as you would like it. You can turn it down. Sometimes when you turn it down, it will, if you have a playback video, it will affect your playback video also. So try to see what your specs are on your card. Usually when you choose the device for the first time, it will preset it for you. I think it's a recommended. It might grab the specs from the card and just give you an optimized setting already for it, which is usually what I do. I let it just choose its own and it stays. I turn it down every once in a while when I need some really tight effects, but I just make sure I don't have playback in there mixed with it. So we're grabbing the external. There's a fallback, which is how fast they fall down. So you'll see they're coming down a little bit lower and slower. There's a black background option here, so that will remove the background, the black in the background. So if you wanted to overlay these, you can. There's a gain, which will give you more boost in your audio input. You can also, I usually try, if I have a lot of these effects set, I will try to match the gain on all of these effects within the effects properties, and then my overall FFT here, I usually sync to a MIDI knob, and then I can control this up and down, and that will bring them all up and down. If I wanted to show the effect a little bit more on a lower part of the song, you can increase it, and you kind of just ride it in and out is what you're doing. If you right click on these effects, it will put them back to their default setting. Okay, so this is pretty much the EQ. You can go into the order here, which is normal. If you look at this audio analysis right here, it simulates it. And if you turn this up, I believe you can hit 80. So you can get up to a high number segments on this. And it depends on what you're pushing your outputs to, what kind of look you want. Sometimes you want just a bigger EQ, which is what this looks like right here, and then sometimes you want a really big, like a big detailed EQ, which is what this. So once you have this, I'm going to update my thumbnail here again, and then you can just add to this effect here. There's one more setting in here called stretch. If we go back up to gradient here, I have this set to horizontal. Let's do radial, and I'll show you what this stretch effect looks like. Let me change this here. Let's go to palette. Instead of radial, we're going to do vertical. And I've made a preset here. And I made one for HD bars. So we're just going to use HD bars here. We can do stepped, which makes it more defined so they're not blending together. All right, so this is a gradient. Let me just show you what it will look like without the effects on it. This will just be quick. I'm going to do a gradient preset here, and we're going to do HD bars stepped. So this is what the HD bars looks like. So this is what the effect is overlaying on top of right now. And I just have it set to vertical. So what I'm doing with this stretch effect right here is this is revealing the color palette that you have behind it. If you go to stretch, it's going to stretch that overall image to your EQs, to your, to the scaling of those segments, which is a really cool effect. You can do a lot with this as a reveal or as a texture on top of your EQ. What you can do when you have your effects, it's sometimes you want to change your colors, or you want to put a different image and you don't want to rebuild all your effects on top. Say you have this reveal effect here, and then you have more effects on top of it. You have a render order like a let's see here. Let's go to let me grab a different color here. Let me go back to 2 colors here, just to show you what this will look like here. I am going to add another effect onto this. This will give the EQ a kind of a 3D look, like a block. We will use, what do I use for this? Iterate, I think. Let's see, iterate. We are going to add the iterate effect to it, and by default it's iterating on top of this EQ. And there's some settings you can go into this. Let me just pull this back up so you can see a little bit of everything here. So let me turn down the transform. Let me just put this above transform real quick. Let me close reveal, and this is all the iterate settings right here. There's a quick and dirty trick that I saw from Doc Optics, I think. He released a text pack, and it was a killer text, animated text pack that looked 3D. Check him out. Doc Optics has some sets also that you can purchase, and he's got some free samples. They are great. Your iterations is how many iterations you have on top of your clip. I'm going to turn this, I'm going to keep it at default for now. The scaling is where you want to back off a little bit. So you'll back off this scaling, and you'll see they go and Z space a little bit. They'll back up. So find a good point to where how thick you want your blocks. Turn up your iterations, how many you want, and then you'll have to play a little bit with both of them here. So I'm just going to do a light. And when you start turning down the opacity on just that effect, I'm going to add it instead of alpha. You can see, let me just crank this all the way up. You can see that they're somewhat 3D now. It gives it some kind of depth. You can add to this to define the iteration a little bit more with an edge detect. So let's go edge detect on the whole output. Let's turn that down a little bit. We're going to put this to add also and just crank it up a little bit just to show where it ends in the back over here. There's a couple more settings on here as far as start opacity, which you can play with these in the opacity change, and that will have it fade out just a little bit more. And to finish this off, we can, instead of vertical, we'll go back to radial. Instead of stepped, we'll go to smooth, and we will increase the size of the gradient a little bit here. Let's maybe horizontal. Yeah, I like horizontal. So that's kind of a cool effect to get like a 3D EQ going. Okay, so say you have all these effects, you have all your settings dialed in. You don't want to add another clip to this and have to put all these effects back onto it. So what I usually do is I'll keep my original here. I'll make a good thumbnail out of it so I can see what it is, and I'll copy it. You can either right click on it and copy, Control C. Shortcuts, if you hold down on a PC, if you hold down Control when you drag it, it will duplicate it for you. And what you can do with these effects also is you can go into your library. We can find a cool lighting effect. Let's see what we have here. Something like this that's flashy, and just drag that effect or that clip on top of the duplicated that you have, and it will show that I have it set for stretch right now, but it'll show your video clip within that effect, and then you can experiment with some more settings once you have this here. So let me just drag this back up here. We'll go to the settings for reveal, and I have it set for stretch right now, so we can just have it revealing the overall clip. There's another option in here for texture. If you set it to color, it will give you a cool color spread across all the segments. It's basically, I'm not sure how it's doing it, but it's grabbing the color, the pixels, or a combination, some kind of algorithm that's grabbing the colors, and it's making it appear in different colors here as your video is playing, which is something I like a lot. When you have a lot of EQs here, it pulls off a really cool effect. So you can go back to full, you can start seeing the image, and then color here is where it'll show you all these colors, and you can experiment with some of these other settings on here if you like to. You can double it up so it shows more in a grid here, so you have a wall of EQs. The phase will show you. You can link these to a MIDI knob or a dashboard. So if you have your dashboard open, you can pull open this gearbox here, hook it up to a dashboard. It will give you an option here to what knob on the dashboard you want to control as. You can click into this field, and then you can have it as, we'll just name it as EQ phase. So you have EQ phase. I guess you got to keep your text a little bit limited here so you can see what you're dealing with. So we're just going to do phase. And then I can go up to my MIDI shortcuts. Looks like I have it linked to something already on my MIDI. And you can manually bump these up and down too with your phase or whatever part of the song. Say you have a slow part of the song and you don't want to show as much, so you can bring it down a little bit, so it's a little bit lower. So that's the EQ effect, and that's what I used a majority of these effects inside of the React Set 1. They're all color, I try to keep them all color themed. And they're all based off of a gradient is what they all started with, and you can go in here and change your colors to match your theme. But that's what I started with. All these effects have this main reveal effect as the first effect in the render order. And there's some cool ones in here. You can really, the combination of making all these effects is endless. Just to show you if you just keep adding effects onto this, like a let's see, like a polar kaleido here. So if you add this polar here, I'm going to bring my panel back up. You can make it as a circle. What I did here was I put it, there we go. All right, so I'm all about symmetrical. It depends on your stage. If you have an asymmetrical stage, which is it's not mirrored from the center out, symmetrical shows it's like a replica of a right and a left. So if you fold the stage straight down the middle, the left and the right should match. And most of the events or the stages that are designed are in that format. So the mirror effect comes in handy when you're using that kind of format. So what you would want to do is you can put the mirror, the render order matters. You can put the mirror effect after the polar. I'm going to put it before. So let me just turn this off here. So I want the left and the right to match, and that will be on the x-axis. I will just do 0.5. So it's symmetrical now. So everything that is moving on this EQ goes from in out. You can switch this around so it goes out in, so you can use the flip. I'm just going to use it. I'm going to build on top of, depending on how this looks with this polar. So now you can see this polar has the a symmetrical look, and I kind of like it like that. So I can switch it around here, which gives it a little bit more. You can use this in and out in the mirror to get some other effects also, and it depends on your selection here. So we can just move this in and out. There's rings for this polar effect here. You can do parts, how many parts you want in the middle of it. And this is a cool effect. When you want to center something, you can go into here and put, a logo in the center or something, and it will kind of highlight, a logo. So that's my composition. I usually set up the top layer here. I will usually use for logos. So I usually use this for logos when I have an artist up there. And these, I'll have 5 layers below the logo. I want it soloed out. A lot of the times the artist does not want you to manipulate their colors on their effect or effects and colors. They don't want you to change anything. They have a strict marketing guide, and the writer says don't mess with the logo. So I'll usually group these 5 layers together. You can group them, just put new group. And then you can just drag the rest of these. I'm not sure if you can select all of them and then group them. There might be a way. There might not be. But when you have them all grouped together, you don't have to add the color effect or like a hue rotate to all these. You have a group panel that pops up now. And then you can go to your effects, grab your hue rotate, and then you can just kind of change all the effects. As long as you're starting with the same color palette, you can go in here and make a preset. We'll save this as PB, not peanut butter. It's more purple blue, and we will do 2 color, whatever you want to name it. So you got that saved. So if you had another effect in here, you could easily just pull open this preset here and it'll say peanut butter 2 color. So let me show you one more method here. Will the stream be uploaded afterwards? Yes. This is saved onto YouTube. I'll make a post in the Resolume Facebook page. It seems to be a big gathering in there, and we will show maybe an additional episode in there also. Okay, let me just go over some of the comments here. CVH, are you going to beatbox to show how the EQs move? No, you don't want me to do that. I worked with an artist. This guy was a killer beatboxer. Beardy Man, look him up. Beardy Man is a really cool dude. He was in the UK at the time. He contacted me when I was doing a lot of quartz composer compositions, and I kind of worked remotely with him. I met him once, but he is a killer beatboxer, and he's got a couple really cool YouTube videos out there for, I think he did a party for Google, and he's got some festivals that he's done. But check him out if you like beatboxing. How long do you think the stream will go on? I do not know. The last stream I thought was going to be just an hour or an hour and a half, and it went for 3 hours. I'm going to try and limit this to see. I know not everyone can stick around that long. It it probably would have been better to have an intermission in between that. But it's recorded, so if you can't look at it, watch it all at once, check it out, at a later time, or put it into different, I'll make chapters also. What I did with the last stream is someone actually did that for me. It was really great. He sent me a list of times for chapters in the video, which was very helpful for everyone. I really appreciate that. It's a great idea. So I'll do that addition also for this. So I'll let you guys cut to wherever you guys want to go into this video. Mostly this is going to be generative content. I might label it by EQ clips or something. Thanks. I'm glad to hear the stream looks good, man. I appreciate that. I'm using a new card for streaming. I updated my streaming rig with an RTX card, and the GPU codec is much cleaner on these cards, I believe, from the comparison that I've done. So let me go over one more thing you can do with this effect. If you watched Steve's video recently, a great video, STV in Motion, he put a video, a webinar out that showed how to use. He made some generative content with masks and use them as masks, and he put them all on the top layer. You can put them in different orders, and it shows how you can use some of these effects as a mask themselves. So if I wanted to have these effects by themselves, I don't know a fast way to do this. Maybe there is. We are, instead of using a gradient, you're just going to build off of effects. So I'm going to control drag this reveal effect up to this next layer here. That will put the effect only on this clip. So there's no source file that it's building on. It's just the effect is the clip. And I will drag the rest of them over also. So there's one. We'll do the edge. We're going to do the mirror. And I'm just going to keep this as the hue for this one. So if you click on it, you don't see anything. If you put a solid color underneath it, let me find a solid color here. All right, and we trigger that and we bring that layer up. Then you can see that I've got a hue rotate on. Okay, so you can see that it's revealing whatever is below it. And the effect, when you add it as, it comes in as a video router. So it's going to reveal everything that's below it. So it says layers below right here. You can choose a specific layer, which is 4, which is what I have this on. So say I have this transform on the bottom of this effect here, and I scale it down, you're going to see what's behind it. That's what it's grabbing. And sometimes you don't want that. I believe if you bring down this layer, it still grabs the input. You can choose it to grab the opacity. So if you bring both of them down, you can leave it off and just black out that layer if you wanted to go that route also. But you have the ability to change all the colors here on the fly, which is nice. You can MIDI some of these together, which is cool because you can leave that effect running. You can have a lot of files in the background here. Let me just drag some in here real quick, and it will start revealing. Let me just put this back to default. It'll start revealing what's below it, which is you can just keep that effect going, and you can switch your clips around here with your MIDI. So that's a way to have an effect going and triggering clips below it. It's a great masking option. Steve went over that a lot. Check out his video. It's very helpful. So there's 2 ways you can use these effects. You can use them as a mask. You can use them as an effect on top of a source, which is either a solid gradient or a clip that you have inside of Arena. If you want to keep it purely generative, you're going to use a solid or a gradient. There is a difference. with some of these effects, I believe some of them use more CPU, some use GPU. I have not made a list on which ones utilize what hardware. Maybe I can reach out to some of the developers and see, I can come up with a list. So if you have a machine that's not capable of pushing some of these effects, I know I have a new MacBook Pro, the i9s, and when I use a radial blur, the radial blur on the MacBook, they come with AMD cards, and they're great cards. AMD is really pushing it forward, but it does take a little bit of a hit on performance when you use some of these effects. So if you're using, if you download this set and you're on a machine that's not a modern machine, and something like this effect here, this effect has, let me just crank it up here, has a really big radial blur on it. So let me turn up the audio here. And when you start adding, like a feedback into it, you can see the radial blur with it. That takes a hit on the MacBook Pros for some reason. So I think since I have the i9s, I think the radial blur is one of them that I can say that uses the GPU. I may be wrong. I'll follow up and see how each effect utilizes. There's a lot of effects, so it's kind of just, you got to experiment with them, which one takes a hit. If you go up to View, and if you show, show hardware stats, it'll put your hardware stats down here on the bottom. So you'll see if your CPU's getting used on all this. Correct, all effects use a GPU. Thanks, Bart. I appreciate that, man. So yeah, some of them use them a little bit more than others, I've noticed. Radial blur is one of them that uses them a little bit more. So it will depend on your GPU if you're doing generative content. So you got to experiment with them. So what I recommend, if you like for this React Set 1, if you don't have a powerful GPU, I can black out this radial blur. So if you turn it on, I mean, it gives you a really cool effect, as you can see. I'm using it with a feedback effect. I'll show you how I use that also. Feedback gives a really cool glow effect, and it depends on, you got to kind of ride this in and out. I usually set my feedback here to 90-something, 97% is kind of what I like to keep it at. It gives you, if you crank it up too much, it's gonna blow out your screen. And it's, see if I have it up to 100, it just starts whiting out your whole screen. So I try to keep this down at 97, 90 somewhere. And if you have your blending modes, if you set them to add, which is what I use a majority of the time, depending on the artist. And if you ride down, I keep my feedback up, and if you ride down this layer a little bit, you'll see that it starts to, it gives it a glow, which is a really cool effect. And some of these songs, when the beat starts to drop, or it starts to, it starts to build up a little bit, that build up moment has a smooth spot in the song, and then it drops, and then you just, you go to a different clip after that. So yeah, some require more processing power than others. Blurs are always heavy, yeah, just like on any software that uses, like After Effects. You put a blur on there or something, depending on the quality of the blur, it uses a lot of GPU. So thanks, Bart. I appreciate you chiming in there. That's awesome. So yeah, I recommend a good GPU if you're going to be using, a lot of generative content. I mean, I pulled it off with a MacBook Pro with a full sets of just generative content, no clips whatsoever. It was just all based out of a solid effect or source, and I just threw effects on top of it, and I did the whole show. It slammed at 60. You just got to be wary of what effects you're putting on it. So that's a pointer. So this is kind of what I've been doing is I'll make generative contents. Generative content is unlike a video loop, which is the same thing over and over again. It's a 10-second or 20-second clip, and then it starts over again. So it gets repetitive after a while. And with a generative content, you can. It's something that's always different most of the time, depending on how you create it. But it's something that's audio reactive. If you choose to go that route with an input, you can sync it to BPM also. I use a mix of both. Like this set right here has, I'm pretty sure it has something that zooms in and out on one of these. Let me see. Yeah, this kaleidoscope here. This has a zoom that is hitting the audio analysis. I'm grabbing it, and it's grabbing it from the midpoint and then zooming it out a little bit and then going back to the midpoint. So what you can do with this is you can sync it. Right now I have it going to external, but you can sync it to BPM. So it's a constant beat. And if you tap in your whatever song you're going with, the mix of a BPM and audio analysis makes it look really tight during a show. So it's something where you can just sit there and tap. It's to tap in the BPM. It's right here. And then when you go onto a beat, you find if it's a 4-beat. I got it set for 4 beats. When you're trying to start the beat on one, you just sync it back to it. And that kind of, I think if you just tap it in as you're tapping, it will start to sync also, which is what I do a lot of the times. What's good with having the BPM and the resync is you can sit there and resync it, and you can restart it when you want to go to the beat, which is another way to trigger on a specific beat. So let's make one more effect here. I'll show you how to use this reveal effect one more time. For those of you who are just joining, tap on the external controller is great. Yes, I use an APC 40. There is a foot switch that you can plug into this, and you can tap with your foot, which is easier. Your hands are a little bit more freer, and then you can keep your hands on the controls, faders, or different effects. And then you can just use your foot to use as a tap. You can actually put I believe there's 2 foot switches on this, so you can use one for the tap and then one for sync. And that's really helpful. Can I get a better blur somehow? The blur effect, yes, you can. There's ways to increase the quality on some of these effects here. On the blur effect specifically. Let's make one more here. Let me grab the same color here. So let me just go through and delete all these effects. I will leave the reveal effect. Actually, I'm going to delete it just so you guys can go along with me here. So we'll add the reveal onto this solid. What I have right now is a solid. And if I bring it up, here we go. There's a solid. And I'm going to put the reveal effect on top of it. I'm going to drag it just above just for my OCD. And actually, I think I'm going to leave this one before. I'll show you the difference, what the render order makes here. For reveal, I am going to... We're just going to crank this up a little bit here. I'm going to leave it down just a little bit so it shows some dynamic. We're going to back this off to 1. Let's put this to like 36. So I've got 36 on the x-axis and y has 1. Border, let's just let's worry about that later. I'm going to want to stretch the color to this one after I'm finished, I believe. I'm going to want a little bit more. I want the color to grow. We're going to leave this at center. We are going to normal. So they're all growing from the middle here. I'm going to get rid of fade for now, just so we can see what we're doing. And then we are going to seed it with the, of course, external audio. If you have an audio clip and you're running audio from Arena, choose composition. So whatever you're playing inside your composition will grab that audio from inside. Right now I'm using a capture device, so I'm just going to let it use what audio I have going into it right now, which is mostly my mic. Fallback, I'm going to want it to gradually go down a little bit. I want it to fall a little bit slower. So the higher you increase this value, the slower it will, the segments will decrease in size. And we're going to, let's add a mirror effect. There's a look that I like. It's kind of like a V formation. It's a symmetrical look. I like the V because CVH, my initials, has the V in it. So I like the V look. It's kind of looks great on stages also. No one really knows that it's for my initials, but that's my subliminal message sometimes on some of these shows. I'll put my signature up there. So let's add a mirror effect here. We are going to get that symmetrical look with the 0.5. So it kind of grows. I'm going to want to flip it so most of the dynamics are in the center. And I'm just going to leave a black background on here for now. And you can use the in and out here to move these around. So this is kind of, there's an effect called mirror quad, and it kind of gives you this effect. It's right below mirror here. So it kind of gives you that effect. And if you click on these effects with whatever you have going on, it will show you, it will give you a preview of what these effects do. So you can click on these if you're in the middle of a show and you don't have time to, if you're building something on the fly, which I've done in the past. You can build it, you can manipulate the parameters down here, and then drag that onto your clip, and it will show up. Sometimes you don't want to just drag the clip on there with its default properties, and then it shows real quick, and then you got to manipulate it that way. So you can manipulate it before you drag these on also. I am going to just leave this at 0.1 for now. Let's see. Let me look at some of the questions. Using the APC40, I like to assign 2 to the dash control to reveal audio feedback control and then gain so I can control the effect. Exactly. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's what I do. FFT right here. I can, if you're talking about increasing the gain, not all levels are the same at all the venues that you go to. You're capturing different audio levels most of the time. It depends on what the audio engineer is sending you. So yeah, I have to ride it in and out also. Sometimes you want the effect to show a little bit more in lower parts of the song. Take it easy, Guillermo. I appreciate you coming in. Check it out later. Yeah, there should be some useful stuff on here. Tapping with the foot. I'm doing it anyway. Yeah, I think we all do that. I think when we're in the moment, that's a good point. When you're into the song, if you know the jam, that's where VJing shines. This is where the audio reaction kind of lets you pull that off when you don't know the song or the artist, which I think a majority of us have been putting that into that situation where this artist comes up and you're like, who is this? And then sometimes you'll be like, oh yeah, I know that song, but sometimes you don't know when the beat's going to drop, or sometimes you can read it out, or so the audio reaction, this is something that you can just let play. And when the audio stops, the effect goes away. So it's, this kind of is an easy way to where you can walk away and grab a drink during a show if you wanted to do something like that. You can set these to autopilot. It's going to look better if you tap it in and you switch, some clips on the beat, of course. But yeah, this gives you that. It's when people are looking at something that's generative and synced with the BPM and audio reactive. A lot of people are asking how are they doing that? What software are they using? And I get guys that come up to control booths all the time and say, how are you pushing this? And they're it's something new for some people. So it's. So let me take a question here. This might be a simple question. Can you stream and live feed a person over green screen and use that as a mask? Can you stream and live feed a person over screen and use that as a live mask? You can, yes. I'm doing that, but I'm not using it as a mask. So if I go to my Connect camera here, I have a green screen behind me. Let me go to my studio cam. You can see the overall setup here. So there's a green screen behind me, and I have myself keyed out, and I'm putting myself on top of the Arena interface. So you could just have that keyed out, and then you can just choose your blending mode, if I'm understanding correctly, to mask. I can't do that because my camera feed is going straight into OBS, and it's keyed out in there. But yeah, if you're capturing your video inside of Arena, just choose it as a mask. There's ways to do that with the Connect camera. To use a Connect camera, it will show the video. If you want to get more parameters from, like a player index, which automatically cuts out some kind of keying for you. It's not real sharp, but it's workable. Then you can use it as a mask also. So there's ways to do that, Audrey. Yeah, good question. So let's continue with this effect here. I'm going to show. There was a question. How can you get better blur? So sorry, I delayed that a little bit, but let's build this, and then I'll show you. I'll put a blur effect on it. Let's build a Kaleido effect on top of this. K. There's got to be a way just to go to K, right? There used to be. I thought I could hit K or M before, and it would jump to it, but. We'll see. So this is a Kaleido effect. It's something that I haven't done in a while. I kind of just grab them and drag them over. But if you want to speed it up, I thought there was a way to jump to a list in there. I know there was a tip. If you go to STV's got a tutorial Facebook page, and someone posted in there where you can name your effects here as you put a header in front of it, and then when you type it up, K up here, it will show all your effects that have that header on it. So that is a good point. I don't use that. I should, because I'm constantly digging through here, and I'm like, where is K? Because they've added so many great effects in here, and I sometimes it's like a kid in a candy store. I'm like, which one do I want? And I like to look at them most of the time. So let me work with this Kaleido effect here. Let me get rid of the mirror. We're going to grow this a little bit here. I am going to let's put this before the mirror. That way the mirror is triggering on top of it. And I will let's see. Let's do some angles on here. Let's grab this angle down a little bit so it's not as much, and then we're going to rotate it to bring it into a V. This is that signature look that I was telling you about. I like that V look. There's options to zoom this in and out, so you can get some different effects. You can use these during the show if you link these to a dashboard control again and just manipulate live some of these effects also. Input rotation will, just like it sounds, it's an input rotation. You can come up with some cool, a triangle effect. That's where I got that one effect. It's like a triangle. I put a blur on that, and it came out really cool too. We're going to stick with the V for now. And then we're going to add a radial blur to this effect here. Let's mirror this one more time first. Let's put a mirror before this one more time. Let me see. Work with me because I'm building this as we go. This is something. What you do is just, you keep adding effects until you find something you like. A lot of the time, and it takes time to do some of this. So under reveal, we are going to let's just add one more mirror, and then we will flip it again, just to have the it's more of a dynamic. I don't know if you guys can see the difference here, but if I take it out and then I add it, a slight difference. You can go into transform here and rotate this also. This is going to rotate your solid before all this, so you can see it will cut out some of it. What it's doing is it's giving me a little bit more dynamics, so it's not a complete solid on top of this, and that comes with experimentation, playing with some of these effects. Let's add the radial blur. Let's get into that so we can. I'm going to start using this feature, radial blur. Let's put radial blur down here, and by default it's 100%. I am going to turn that down a little bit. There's a step parameter here, and that will show you how many steps there are inside of this blur. You don't always need it at a max. There's a high quality setting. I'm not sure exactly what that does, but it gives you a higher quality of the blur, which is probably exactly what it does. So I usually check that off. I use GPUs that can handle it. If you're struggling on resources, then leave it off. Sometimes it's not going to matter for depending on what you're projecting onto. Steps I usually leave in the 20s, and the distance is the distance that it is on top of this effect here. So let me drag a I use dark colors also on these. You can lighten these up a lot and it will show more. I try to keep it on the darker end of the spectrum because to get that glow effect that I rave about, I use a feedback. And feedback is a source. I believe it used to be an effect, but it is a source only now. So if I put this on the bottom layer, which is what I wanted to reveal here, I'm going to turn down my feedback to the 90s, like I said before. And if you have all your blend modes or the two that you want to add, put in the add, and then when you start back in this one off, you'll see that glow. So that's one way to get it blends your blurs together a little bit more. So it's a nice highlight for some of these effects, and it depends on which song is going on. If you want it to be more audio reactive looking, you can kind of get rid of that. Let me play with this radial blur just a little bit more here. Usually I do not keep it on all the time. I will use it with usually the low end of the spectrum, and that triggers it with a beat to the song. I usually turn the fallback down just a little bit. So let's see if I turn this up here. It shows when I don't have a lot of low end here. I guess I do. My voice is deep. Yeah. So that will give you the trigger. You can change it to the mediums, the highs. For some reason or another, on my sound cards that I use, I don't get a lot of highs in this audio analysis. And I don't know if that's a limitation on Windows. We all know that the Mac has a better core audio system. It's superior to Windows, I believe. So it might be different on a Mac. I know I've compared them in the past, and my levels are a little bit different, and that could be just the way the operating systems work. There are several different methods for Windows to capture your audio. You can see Windows Audio or Direct Sound. So you have to play with that. Will give you different latencies. There's an addition for grabbing system hardware that has less latency, ASIO, ASIO or ACO. It's a good option if you're trying to combine audio and patch and route also. But I find the latency on that plugin to be less and more overall than the system audio for some reason for me with my configurations. Hello, yes, this will be recorded. Been going for an hour plus. You are late. Don't worry, this is recorded. You can rewind it. I believe you can rewind it live also, but if you want to ask questions, try to stay live, and then you can go back and check out what I previously went over. And I will put a link to download this React Set 1, which has some of these effects in there also, plus more. So this, we were just going over how to get a cleaner blur, and that's my trick. I use feedback. That way, if I have a song going, let me crank up some audio here. Let's see what Spotify will give us. And you gotta experiment with this, as you're so that's what I use with the feedback. I try to ride it in and out for some of these shows, and it all depends on your levels. That's why this FFT gain here is great. You can ride it in and out when you want it to be a little bit lower, and then you can crank it up when you want it to be a little bit higher. So radial blur is great. I had that set to the high spectrum, so that's probably why it wasn't reacting as much. So now you can see it starting to grab the low end beats a little bit more. And the steps is what you're going to want to go for here. This will clean up your. It's going to be more processor heavy, but it'll add some more, and then try high quality if you can handle it. You can call it Purple Haze. You can name it Purple Haze. So if you like this effect, remember you can go into these presets and save it as Purple Haze. So that will be your Purple Haze effect. Although if you decide to change your colors, you're gonna, but you can name them how you want, and then you can recall them. Drop that radial effect back on there, recall it. It'll give you a similar setting. So I like this look, this V look. You can keep building on top of this. There's endless ways to manipulate these effects, and it all depends on. I mean, you can use these same effects in a different render order. If you put your Kaleido at the bottom or something, it's going to give you a different look to where it's, your lines are going sideways instead of that V look. So there's lots of options here. Let's see. I don't know if you guys want me to keep going with building effects, or if you guys want me to try and start on something new here, like a different effect that doesn't use the reveal effect. They've added more effects and sources with the later versions of Arena, and so you don't have to use that reveal effect. It's great because it's audio reactive. But you can use audio reaction with different effects. Let's like if you wanted to get something more 3D looking, we could do Let's just, since I want the same color scheme here, let me just update my thumbnail here so I can see. And again, that's Shift-Control-T on a PC will update your thumbnail. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to delete all these effects. I am going to zero everything out. If you right-click on the parameters, it will zero out for you. So there's other effects in here. Let me just update this. How you can export this? That's a good question. The way I do it is save as. Save your composition name. Remember, it's going to save all your decks into that composition. And then on the PC, if you go to Documents and Arena, and if you go under Compositions, you will see that composition, and then you can share that or copy it to another machine. I've gone from Windows to PC, Mac to PC, PC to Mac, and you get identical results. You might have to adjust your audio because it's a different audio core system. So that's one way you can share your compositions or save them to another machine. I've never tried to use the media manager. Save as. Let's try it. Let's go to. Actually, no. We want to collect the audio, so I think this might just be for clips. I don't know if it's going to. I've got so many clips in here. I can't do this right now. It'll take too much time. That's something I'll experiment with. Maybe Bart can chime in. I don't know if you collect media, if it puts it into a folder. I think it might grab that composition file and put it into a folder, and then you can copy it. But it's going to be the same thing as if you just save as, grab that, as long as you don't have any clips in there, and then just save that to another machine, transfer it over, and then open it up on that machine. There's options in 7 to import from 6. But keep in mind there are more versions or more effects in 7 than 6 in sources, so you won't get all the effects and it might look a little bit different. I try to keep them version to version. So let's go back. Let's say you want to build something, another effect. We're not using a reveal effect. There's some 3D shapes that you can grab out of these effects. Sphere is one of them. So this gives you a really cool 3D sphere, and you can you can change the size of this sphere. 0.3 is what I'm going to stay with. You can change the resolution to how many points there are on a sphere or on a circle. With Media Manager, collecting to a folder will save your composition in the folder and create subfolders with your media files. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's going to be the same thing. If you don't have any content inside of this composition, it will just save your. It's going to be the same thing as hitting Save As. But if you're using some of your effects on top of clips, then use the Media Manager, and then you can transfer that to your backup machine or a different machine. If you have a studio machine and a show machine. So back to the sphere, I reduced some of the points with the resolution here. Let's just crank it up somewhere around here. I know there's certain points where every decimal on here does not change this. So I don't know, 27 is a good number for me. I think 27 sounds nice. There's an extrusion, so this kind of shows you how you can extrude this. Let me just get rid of the feedback here. I got to see the feedback in the background. Let me just cancel that out for now. And then you can invert. There's noise, so you can move this effect back and forth with noise, and that'll kind of give you a 3D effect here. And then there's some other options such as zoom. If you want to make it larger, you can actually go inside of this sphere. That'll give you a different look. And then there's a rotation. So for now, I'm just going to hook this rotation on the y-axis to a timeline. We're going to spin it around. a little bit slower than the default. And I'll have this noise set for, so we'll use BPM on this one. So this will be BPM, and instead of repeating, I want it to bounce back and forth, and I'm going to keep this a little bit. Oh, I guess this goes in steps with BPMs now. Yeah, that's right. So you can tap in how fast you want the BPM going back and forth. So if you're using tap now, then it's one way to do it. So to build on top of this, what I've done with this effect is I like the edge detection effect. This will give you an outline of each of these points. So let's just drag this on top real quick. I have the edge here, and let me make this a little larger. We'll bring down this edge effect. I'm going to go to an addition mode, and we are just going to show the outline from point to point here, and that'll define the sphere a little bit more. And then it's all about, if you want to add a blur to this, that blur that we just did, we'll grab it, we'll drag it on top here, and every time every time a beat drops or something, you can see that it starts to glow. And if you add the feedback to this again, then it's it'll cause that glow to go a little bit more. So we're using that purple haze preset that we just made for the blur, and we're using it with a sphere. There are ways to get this sphere to link with audio. You can go to external here. So if you hit it on external, and if you choose a section of your audio analysis here, I'm just going to leave it wide open for now. You can see how it's going to trigger with my voice, or if you have an audio going to it, and then you can trigger how fast you want it to fall, or if you want it to be a little bit more instant when it drops, you can do something like that. But this is you can come up combining these effects and get some really cool 3D effects in here. My wish list for the future is to add a 3D model into this software. I would love to be able to do that. My background comes from using node visual systems. There's Cinema 4D has a node visual system where it can be real time, but it's more of creating a generative content and then rendering it out with Cinema 4D. There's another software like Touch Designer, which is more real time, and that's based off a visual node system. Notch is another one, which is great. You can Notch has the ability to do real-time graphics mode. Look up some of these. These are great. I'll put them in the description down below when this ends, and you can see how you can get other methods of real-time generative content into Arena. And usually the method to get something from another software is just going into your sources. NDI is great. Capture cards work also. But you can just grab the source and drag it in your composition, and then you can add effects on top of those visuals also. So, say you don't want to go back into Touch Designer or Notch to change colors, you can just drag the color effect inside of Arena on top of your source, and then you can manipulate the colors that way. So you can combine the two together, which is real nice. Visual node system is powerful. If you guys are not familiar with it, look it up. It's patching modules together and routing different modules, and it's something like this render order right here. So you'll have an effect, and then you'll patch that into another effect. You can patch that into a source, and then you can patch it to controls, which go out to OSC or MIDI, and then you can manipulate those effects in real time. It's super powerful. Some of these softwares let you put 3D models in them. You can have an animated 3D model, so you can have, say, like a character running, and then you can manipulate, the animation time on some of these characters running It's like a timeline. You can control the timeline. You can control the cameras, the lighting effects. Some of these new video cards, the RTX lineup, I just heard that the 30 series RTX is something new where it offers real-time ray tracing. Look up ray tracing. It gives you real-time shadow and lighting effects, reflections. So say you have a 3D model in front of you, like this sphere. You can patch a camera into this. Say this sphere has like a mirror effect on it. You can patch a camera into it so your face is textured onto. It's like a reflection going onto that sphere. It's something that is going to grow really quickly. Before it was something that you had to render out in the past, and some of these the hardware is improving, and the technology is getting there to where this can be done in real time now. Node patching is very interesting, Bart. It is great. Thank you. This is something that is working with other softwares combined with Arena. I like to keep everything into one interface. So if I do use like Touch Designer or something on another show, it's your parameters are hidden behind whatever window you have, or if you have another monitor, you can use another computer and patch it into this computer and then have two screens showing. It would be nice to have those parameters inside of the clip properties right here. So say I had a timeline with a 3D model here and I wanted to control the animation of the timeline, I could drag or use a rotary knob to drag that slider up and have that character running or fist pumping or whatever he's doing. I can control the animation. So there's lots of possibilities in the future that can be implemented with some of your content that you guys are making for your shows. You can do it now. It's kind of like patching a lot of software together right now and then importing sources, but you can pull it off still. Hopefully in the future, all this will be in one interface. I use Arena a lot. I use Disguise systems, D3. I'm a D3 operator. All the systems have their capabilities. Arena is my most go-to software for a lot of my shows. It's very flexible. I can, the clients are always changing something, like I said in my last episode, so it's really easy to manipulate your effects or transform, drag around. The interface is super flexible for me, and I can do it in real time. And all my clients are like, "How are you doing that in real time so fast? How are you switching your pips from left to right so quickly?" So it's Arena. I push it a lot. I push it to a lot of people. I show it off. I have fun doing it, and it's great. It's been great to me. I have very little. I've had very little bugs that are show stopping. I don't think I've had any bugs that were show stopping for me with this software, so it's been really solid for me. Love your visions, CVH visuals. Steve, thank you. I like your work also. If you guys haven't checked out Steve's work, he's got some content that is killer. And what I do with a lot of my content, and I think what we are both utilizing with our content is creating it theme based. So I go to a lot of shows and I see a lot of mix match of content. They're all different colors. They're all over the place. So creating your content themed. Check out Steve's content. He's got overlays. It's all theme based. He's got some really cool packs, and that really pulls together a nice tight show. It makes everything look customized for that show instead of just throwing a bunch of different clips up there that sometimes, it looks good sometimes for me because I pixel peep everything. I look and say, some of these things don't go together. Who's doing that? So I try to keep them all themed. I believe it makes a huge difference. So yeah, check out some of those clips from Steve. Go to Resolume's content page. They have a lot of themed graphics on there. There's some other sources out there that some of you are familiar with, and they are themed together. Packs out there. So most of the time you're going to have to pay for the clips. That's where creating your own content comes in handy with some of these. I use Adobe After Effects. I think maybe my next episode I'll dig into After Effects a little bit and show you how to render out some content opposed to real-time generative content. It's a good. It gives you a high-quality clip, but I am a huge fan of the. I don't know how to explain this look. It's a. It's like a bit. It's like a pixel bit rate look. It reminds me of something like Tron. It's got the geometry of some of these effects are really, really cool, and I'm all about geometry. Thanks, Amateur. Yes, I will do an After Effects. Yeah, I think that's something that I would like to go over. I spent a lot of time in After Effects, Cinema 4D, so I think After Effects is what my next episode will be. And right now, if you guys aren't using After Effects or Adobe, they're offering some nice extended trial time on some of these softwares. You can make some of these clips, and when you download, you might have to reinstall the codec from Arena. Go to their downloads page. Lo-fi poly. Thank you. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, I had a loss of memory there for a minute. That's exactly what it is, the poly look. But yeah, going back to Adobe After Effects, install the codec if you're just installing After Effects or any part of the Adobe Media Coder, and then it will install the DXV3 codec, which is what is preferred and optimized for this software, which uses your GPU. Let me grab a drink real quick. So yeah, this is one way to get that. Thank you, VJ Culture. Lo-fi poly look, and it's I don't know if you guys seen like Plexus. Plexus was a cool plugin. It was a cool effect or a source. I purchased it from Arena. I think it was in version 4 or 5. It was 32-bit, so I haven't seen it lately. Actually, I downloaded one from someone. I don't know if it's in here. Let's see. Yeah, I don't have it in here. Yes, I do. This was someone made this. If anyone knows who made this effect, it was a plugin. He made it to 64-bit, and this is the Plexus look. It's a real-time generative content. This is another method. They're FFGL additions that you can add as sources or effects. So some of these guys are making their own effects and putting them into Resolume, and this is what I was talking about, having all your controls for these real-time effects inside of right here inside the interface. So this is what I love. You can go in here. It has a color looks, lifetime. Lifetime. I'm sorry. Line jumper. You can do. Let me see. Let me grab some. I haven't played with this in a while, so I'm not sure of some of these parameters. But this is a really cool effect. If anyone knows this guy's name, leave it in the comment. I'll put it into the description also. But yeah, someone released this as a freebie, and it was super cool. I love the Plexus look. That's something that I've always been a big fan of. So yeah, check out. There's another resource on Resolume, Juice. Juice is somewhat new. You can let's find Juice. I'll show you guys really quick where you guys can get some of these plugins here. So it's on you can go to their website, and there's Juice Bar. These guys made a page with all the plugins that are, I think most of them are the 64-bit versions, and it shows you how you can put these these are real-time generative effects inside of Arena, and it will show, most of them will show you the parameters in there that you can manipulate. So this is, some of these are really, really cool. Something that you can't achieve with just effects that's coded, So check those out. I don't think, there might be a trial for some of these now, so you might be able to try them out. They might be limited on which ones you can try, but yeah, you can see here which ones have parameters, what parameters you can show. Wow, this one has a lot of parameters. Very cool. So that's another resource for getting generative content as well. Let me just look over some questions. Is NDI a better option than Siphon or Spout? Thanks. Pablo, they use different methods. One's CPU based and one is GPU texture sharing. There isn't going to be a lot of difference in latency. If you're using NDI, you're going to see a little bit more of a, depending on your resolution, what you're pushing, a CPU performance hit. So I try to keep my machines at, I try to keep a good count of cores in there and a frequency rate. So if I am trying to do something like that, it doesn't take too much of a hit. So every source has their pros and cons. NDI is great because you can send video over Ethernet from one machine to the next. There's ways to convert Spout or Siphon to NDI now also, if your software is only limited with Spout. NDI has been my, that's one of my tools that I keep on my machines. I use them in some of my venues. I find the latency to be less than some of these capture cards that are in some of the servers. It depends on the server and the capture card. And if the capture card has the SDK inside of Arena, you'll get lower latency with some of those capture cards. But NDI, I've done some tests with a time code, and I've captured it, what was going out and what's coming in, and it's milliseconds. It's so many frames that are just off. So they released a video about this today. Most Juice Bar plugins have tri-functions. Great. That is awesome. That's cool. I'm going to probably check those out pretty soon. I like generative content, and Juice Bar has been on my to-do list. I've been very busy lately. With the quarantine, I've decided to pick up some more skill traits, and I started making an application. This one's with OBS, so I'm making a controller for the Mac and iPhone and iPad, Androids and PCs. So it's pretty much a controller, and it's taken up a lot of my time with learning Swift 5 now to get this on the iOS, and their guidelines are pretty strict. So it's a learning curve. So that's where a lot of my time has been lately. But since I have all this time, I am going to go and learn some new traits. Are there any new sources in 7.2? No, yeah, I am using a beta version here. I'm privileged to test the software with the team. I report back to them and try to make it safe for everyone to use this before they go out to shows. So we try to find all the bugs. I'm not going to go over what's new and what's not new. There's sometimes there's new sources. Sometimes it's just the back end of the operating or the software's system to where we're just making sure everything runs smoothly. I use the beta on some of my shows, and just to test them out. I usually have a main in the backup, so I can do that with a simple switch. But I am using a beta, but all these effects that I'm showing you here right now are in the latest release. So everything's going to be the same if you're on your own machine on 7.1.2. Controller looking great though. Thanks, Sam. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, check it out. It's on my Facebook page. I made a post about it. If you guys use OBS, which everyone's doing right now, Resolume and OBS, super powerful. You can put backgrounds. You can overlay effects on top of. You can put your camera in between the layers, basically. So you can have a foreground with like lower thirds, a background behind you if you're chroma keyed out like I am, and then you can overlay lower thirds. You can put some cool smoke effects or something on here. I had one here that I made before, and it had a really cool smoke effect that came out in front of me. And same thing with like lower thirds. You can bring your lower thirds in and out. I just made some quick animations in After Effects. So yeah, if you're not using Arena with your streaming software, I'm going into OBS right now through NDI, and I imagine the frame rate's pretty good. My frame rate on my server is hammered at 60, and I'm pushing out 1080p at 60 to YouTube right now. So I don't really have a big performance hit. I do have a separate machine for streaming, so I don't know if you put it on the same machine, how much more of a hit. My streaming machine is only utilizing 12% right now. So, and my server is only utilizing 4 or 5%. So I imagine you can do all this on the same machine. I see a lot of guys gaming and using the streaming software on the same machine, so it's possible. I just like to have a backup plan just in case my server dies or something. My stream keeps on going. But yeah, if combine, I use Wirecast every once in a while. It's another streaming software, and I went to OBS recently because there's more of a performance hit in Wirecast. Wirecast shows you these little thumbnails that are live. A majority of the time you can turn it off, but I find OBS for me to be more useful. There's more plugins. There's a bigger community for it that are making. It's open source, so everybody's making additions for this software. Like right now, I have my YouTube chat inside of OBS, and that's how I'm grabbing this YouTube chat and responding to you guys. So it's a module inside of OBS. I just have it off to the side, and that's how I am keeping up to date with you guys here. Any idea what the 64-bit Plexus plugin is? I wish I did. I found it on Facebook, so that's probably where I'm going to want to look. If we can find this within 20 seconds here, we will. Let's go to this new, let's see, Plexus, Resolume. Just do a simple search here and see what we find. Plexus, probably not going to find it really quickly, but this was 14. This was the Plexus plugin that I originally had from Resolume team. Killer, please make that 64-bit. I would love you guys. I purchased that one, and it was so worth it. 15 Plexus body dot line. I don't know. Just do a search in here really quick. I know someone in here knows who it is. It's some dude that started making a bunch of plugins, and cool guy, and he released it for free. I don't know if he started selling them eventually or not, but if I find it, I'll put it in the description, like I said. So, you guys have any questions? Anything you want me to go over? Let me go to a chat window here so you guys can all see what everybody's asking. Any idea what the 64-bit plugin? No, I just went over that. Can you trigger whole columns in a loop for an automatic show? Yes. If what I found to do, say you have, let me just pull something open here. Let me just grab this. This is a pack that I made here. Nope, this isn't one that I made. I'm sorry. Say you have a column here. You've got 3 clips in it. Your next column has 2 clips in it, and they're set to autopilot. So since this one has no clip in it, it's not going to... I mean, I don't think you can use autopilot on the composition. No. So what I've been doing when I run into this, sometimes I'll want a logo transitioning on some backgrounds, and not all the backgrounds have the logo on it, so I don't want it to go with some of the backgrounds that are triggered. And I try to keep everything, a column, going from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know, I try to keep them all going in order. You can trigger your. Let me just get rid of group here, and let's bring out layer. Actually, let's just keep this larger here. So under autopilot, you can have this layer to trigger your next effect. You can go into your clip, and there's an autopilot on here, so you can have it loop so many times before it chooses the action, which is layer determined, which is what's in the layers property. Or you can have it do one of these options here, which you can choose a specific clip. So if you want all these timed, what I do in my case, I haven't done it with, say you have an image. Say this is an image, and it's I made it as 5 seconds long, or it's 1 frame basically. There's a way to export it, and then you can choose how many seconds you want that clip to be. So I'll make all the clips the same speed, and what I'll do is I'll add a solid inside of the empty clip here, and you can set it to 5 seconds or 1 frame, however you want to do it, and just bring down the opacity on that solid. So when it does go to this clip, it'll show these 2 clips. It's triggering this one, so that way, if it's in order, when you get to the end of this list, it's going to go back to it. If there's nothing here, and you have it set to autopilot, it's just going to skip over that and go to the next one. So let's try and put a request in for autopilot trigger up here. You know, like where you can trigger your columns. Maybe there's an option to trigger different columns, you know, one at a time here. If you guys don't know about, here, I'll show you. Let me put my. There's other options. I'm gonna put my Touch Designer key in here. Let me just launch this real quick. What I do on some of my installations, I've made a script inside of Touch Designer. Let me go back over here. So this is Touch Designer. There is a cool dude. Let's see. Let me see where I put this guy. He made this software here. It should show his splash page when it opens up here. Pixel Party. Arvel. A lot of you guys know this guy. He's making some cool things inside of Touch Designer. This is an audio analysis, and check it out. It's called Beat Doctor. I've played around with it a little bit, and it's super powerful. You can go in here. I talked to him yesterday in chat, and he said that he's got a tutorial out. This is released now. You can purchase it. I'm not sure of pricing or anything, but connect with him, and he will show you what this thing can do through a tutorial. But you can link any of these parameters to any of these frequencies on the spectrum to a parameter inside of. So you can just have your highs. I mean, say you just want your highs, not a group of your highs, but you can link that to a specific parameter. And there's ways to do it. If you go to settings, you can see all the data that's coming in from this audio analysis right here, and how you want to output it. OSC, DMX. You can link this audio to LEDs if you wanted to. So this is a really cool software. You might have to get a little bit of a learning curve on this, but it is something that you should definitely check out if you're into audio reaction, and you want a little bit more control, or a lot more control over what is inside of Resolume here. I can get away with doing a lot in Resolume. If your show is very complicated, you can have additional options to trigger Arena outside from another software. So check that out. He's got a couple more. Let's see what he's got here. I got a folder for him. Beat Doctor Color Bridge. He made one for Tracer. This is another really cool one. This has like a trace effect on, that you can put on slices. So it's kind of like Chaser. If you guys know, Chaser has that tracer effect now. You can do the same thing with this plugin also. So check it out. This will grab all your slices inside of Arena, and then you can put different effects on it. So that's a push out for him. I've been using some of these, and they're super great. Going into the triggering, this is something that he made also for, if you're on stage. This is for stage managers and artists. So you can have specific messages coming at a specific time, with specific time code or a system clock to trigger a lot of your columns. So there's ways to, there's other ways to trigger your content. I like to man my station, just in case I need to change something. There's been times where I need to walk away from the controller and go check something out, or take a little bit of a break. For those who would like something similar to Plexus plugin, not But64, check out Galaxy plugin on JuiceBar. It's somewhat similar, but be warned, it's quite a heavy source. Yeah, some of these plugins are going to be heavy source. I've downloaded a couple, and I have a powerful machine, and they'll lock it up. I haven't used that one from VJ Galaxy. I think that's VJ Galaxy, but he's got some cool content also. The Plexus was one of my favorites, like I said before. But yeah, I'll check that out. Thanks, man. Thanks for posting that. That's a good resource. If you're using Arena and Touch Designer together on a machine, or you split, I use it on the same machine. It depends on how heavy my show file is. I try to keep it on the same machine. Sometimes I have it on a separate machine, because if it's on a separate machine, I've got to input it into this machine, and then you're going to get a little bit of latency through, transferring over data. So I try to keep them on the same machine. I build my servers that are up to spec to run multiple softwares. The RAM is capable of handling multiple softwares at the same time. So let's see. Galaxy is made by... Yeah, I think that's who made that other one that I have. So that might have been where it went. It might have went to the JuiceBar. I believe he's got some other ones on there also. A lot of great resources on that page. Check it out. Zoom Virtual Background plugin. Zoom, I just did a Zoom meeting yesterday, and I used Arena with OBS. Out of OBS, you can choose a virtual camera, and it sets up as a virtual camera. And in Zoom, you just choose a virtual camera. I believe Zoom does NDI also, so you can use NDI with it also. That's only on PC though. OBS for the Mac does not have a virtual camera. You might have to use NDI with it. Smart key without green screen. Blue screen? You can use any color. I've seen guys paint their walls behind them and cut them out. I've made projects where you can use a Kinect. It's just not as clean as using a green screen. The resolution on a Kinect is limited with the depth camera and the laser, so you're going to get some pixelation around you. You got to blur yourself out a little bit. So yeah, no problem, man. I saw a nice pattern in 3D. The box one you had in the last video, did you do it in Resolume? The 3D test pattern. No, I did that inside of After Effects. That was, it's something that Steve was talking about the other day, STV. It's Element 3D. So I made a grid of cubes inside of Cinema 4D. I imported it into After Effects and I textured it that way. And then there's animation properties where you can control Z space to move the blocks in and out. Yeah, that really messed with the LED tech. You know, I put that up as a test pattern, and then with Arena, I did a crossfade to make it move, and they just started coming out at him, and he loved it. A lot of the clients liked it too. It was pretty neat. Z-Trip just painted his living room wall green. Yes, that is cool. I want to do that in my studio. Right now, I have a green screen behind me. You can see it here. It's limited on space though, so when my arms go out of the box or something, it doesn't. My arms get cut off. So it'd be nice to have a whole wall behind me. So instead of it going into nothing, it would extend a little bit further. I don't know if my wife will let me paint my wall green. It's my studio, but I don't know if having a green background behind me will give me anxiety during the day. So my green screen I can push up and down, so that's kind of what I went with for now. But yeah, there's a lot of ways. I see people use blue screens also. So there's other ways to get these chroma key. There's chroma key inside of Arena also. So you can put your camera inside of Arena and use a chroma key right here. And then you can choose your color, and then it's got a lot of parameters to get a really nice clean outlay. And I've done that before using a chroma key inside of it. It works great. I use it for lower third sometimes. Sometimes content's given to me lower third, and the guy didn't put an alpha channel in it, so I got a chroma key out the background. So use that straight out of Arena also. You don't have to remake all your graphics. So that's another chroma key tip right there. So can you tell us what kind of hardware you have, please? RAM, graphics card, etc. Yes, this machine, let's go to system, let's go to about. This is a 9900K. It is clocked at 5 gigahertz. I have it overclocked. It runs super great. I've got it at 5. It stays pretty cool, as long as your CPU is not maxed out all the time. The i9s do get a little hot. This has a 2080 Ti in it, and is more than anything I would ever need for Arena. I like the 2080 Ti because I use Cinema 4D. Some of the rendering options will utilize your GPU, and it's in the effects like we were talking about earlier. Blur effect uses your GPU, so even in After Effects, it increases your render time dramatically. So I use a top end or whatever is out on the market right now as a high end card. I use M.2 cards one for an operating system. I've got a couple for content creation. I use a couple for scratch discs like Adobe Premiere or After Effects. So there's redundancy options there for shows. If your show files are super large, say you have 20,000 pixels wide on a show file and you need 4 layers of 20,000 pixels wide, some of these shows will get kind of big in my experience. And I like to split up that content between two M.2 drives. That way it's not pulling all that bandwidth off of one card. So you can pipe in 2 different sources going into a wall. It just eliminates any possibilities of a stutter that could happen depending on what kind of bit rate is in your animations. What do you mean when you say lower thirds? Lower thirds are the titles that pop up. They pop up below you. when someone's talking or something. I have a couple here. This is a lower third. Let me just get rid of some of this background here. So this is a lower third. Let me bring that up. So you can see right here in the corner here, it's a, let me just go to a different window here. Let's go to chat. Let me see if it'll pop up here. Yeah, so it's got my chat on behind it, but this is a lower third, and you can animate it coming in and out. So that's what a lower third is. It's a title, usually a description of the speaker, a ticker. You can have a ticker bar scrolling. Like I've got this little header below me right now, and it's got my name over here. And it's just, that's kind of like a permanent lower third there. I just call it a header. There's some other options for overlays also. So, wait, you can chroma key backgrounds out of logos that easily? Yes, there's two different ways. You can chroma key it to where you can choose a specific color. Auto mask, if it's a black background, choose auto mask. And then you can choose your contrast, how sharp you want that to cut out your logo. There's channel options if it's, so there's a couple different methods. You can invert the auto mask also, which I have to do sometimes when the blacks and the whites are reversed. So check that out. Chat is still up. Yes, it is. I made this cool app to switch my things, and I forget to do it every once in a while. Thank you. Yes, so this is auto mask, and then there is chroma key. So those are the two effects. They're pretty close to each other in the effects list here. Just chroma key gives you color options, more thresholds to play with. You got it, Vince, man. I was supposed to meet up with Vince when I was up in Tennessee the other, a couple months ago before all this happened. And I didn't get the chance to, but we'll see each other one of these days, man. I was on a show and he was right around the corner, and I was deep into a projection mapping show, but we'll see each other. I like to run into a bunch of you guys every once in a while. I've met a lot of guys using Arena, and it's I love sharing and learning. Every time I meet someone, I learn something new, if it's with Arena or with not, and it's something that I will continue to do, share with everyone. Like I said, my next episode will be more on a render-based rendering out clips, probably from After Effects, and I might show a little bit of Cinema 4D also, just how to get both of those together. And I usually use Cinema 4D for 3D modeling and After Effects for texturing and compositing and animating somewhat. And then I'll put those render them out DXV3 right into Arena. And that's pretty much my workflow. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll try not to take as long to get the next episode out. Like I said, I've been a little busy with learning some new code skills. I'm trying to release this application pretty soon. So if you guys have any more questions, try to send them to my email. You can go to my webpage, go to my Facebook page, send them to me there. I'm inside of the Resolume Facebook page also, and I'll show my face in there every once in a while and respond to some of you that have questions in there that need help. So thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate you joining me, and I hope you can join me on my next episode and try to keep in touch with me. I hope everyone's doing well. I don't know who needs a haircut like I do. That's why I got a hat on. But hopefully this will be under control very soon, and we will get back out there and do some more gigs. But for right now, try to start experimenting with streaming with Resolume and something like OBS, and we will. This is something that's new, and I'm seeing a lot of streaming going on now. So Resolume combined with streaming software, when you get injected into the streaming software, is super powerful. I can't stress that enough. It can make your streams look great. So thanks, guys, for joining me. You guys are all welcome. Send me some messages, man. Take it easy.